And here to add some perspective on the Texas voting bill, I'd like to bring in political analyst Quentin Giles. Welcome you back, better yet. You're like a family member.
Thank you. It's always good to be here with family.
Now, moving on to Texas, another Republican state trying to pass strict voting measures that some say will impact black and brown communities. Now, after a record turnout in 2020, the GOP members keeping up with this big lie. If passed, Quentin, can you just tell us how this will impact minorities?
Yeah, absolutely. They are definitely continuing with the big lie. And what this would do would make it harder for people of color, black folks in particular, but brown and indigenous folks here in Texas to vote. They're rolling back voting times as far as early voting, which we saw massive early voting in the previous election. They're also rolling back times on Sunday to vote, when we know historically black people who go to black church have souls to the polls drives where they collectively go to vote, rolling back those times, increasing the intimidation at the polls by empowering partisan poll watchers to be closer to where people are when they're voting, so that the language, I believe, says so that they can hear what's going on as people are getting the necessary documents and tools that they need to vote. But some say that that is going to be able to increase intimidation of black voters. If one could imagine someone who truly believes the big lie that the election was stolen and has a bias against black folks gets to work as one of these poll workers and gets to literally be feet away from black folks as they're voting, that definitely increases intimidation, which could definitely affect voter turnout for black folks.
Yeah, and Texas now joining Florida and Georgia with restrictive voting laws. Is it time for President Biden to create some type of federal voting rights legislation?
Yeah, it's past time. I wouldn't lay it all on President Biden's feet, because the Congress should be doing this as well. But since Joe Biden is in office, and since that was one of his campaign promises, and since that is something he continues to talk about, then he does have a responsibility as well. And so, yes, absolutely, the John Lewis Voting Rights Act should be passed. You cannot continue to advocate, whether you're Democrat or Republican, that you want safer, fairer elections and you want voter participation, and not put in legislation that protects actual voters. To pull away the dog whistles, to pull away the big lie, to pull away, like here in Texas, trying to give power to courts to overturn elections, even if there is a small amount of voter fraud, not having to actually prove that whatever bit of voter fraud happened changed the outcome of the election. So yes, they need to pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Act immediately.
All right, earlier on, major corporations, American Airlines and Microsoft and others, they spoke out about this restrictive voting law. We haven't heard anything now. Was it more so lip service? Final word.
Yeah, that's what it seems to be. It seems as though corporations, they want to get on the right footing when it's convenient for them. But as we continue to see the assault on democracy, we're not seeing them stand up. So that means we, the people, will have to continue to stand up and put pressure on the legislature and these companies.
You said it right. We as the people got to put the pressure on them. Political analyst Quentin Giles, always a pleasure having you on BNC, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Family reunion.